Hi, my name is Drew Pomeroy, and welcome to this beginner-friendly series on learning RStudio and Shiny Apps.io for athlete monitoring. In this series, we'll be exploring how to create a dynamic and user-friendly web application to monitor athletic performance, specifically focusing on baseball players. So in the last video, we went all over the UI code. You actually saw a couple of things where I made mistakes. I actually called out the errors on screen. So in this one, we're gonna get to writing the server code. We actually get to running the application locally, and that's where I figure out where a lot of those errors came in, and I go back and fix them. And then we're actually gonna publish this thing. So now we're gonna define server logic for the Shiny app. And this does involve a function. You can see over here, there's a list of functions. So as a reminder, we've got our data, we have the new assessment, and the UI is actually that list of 4 here that comes up. We can actually look at those by clicking on them if we want to. If I click new assessment, right, that brings up my data as well. So it's just a cool little trick there. But let me exit out of those. The server here too, we can actually bring up, and we've actually still got it based off of that old faithful geyser data that we have in here. So this is the actual function, and it saves over here, which is pretty neat. But that's a good reminder that we're gonna need to save our progress here once we write in this server function. So for the server itself, let's go ahead and begin. I'm gonna type in server, and we are going to create a function. All right, we want an input, an output, and a session. All right, and then we're going to do this. Whoops, we want a squiggly bracket. So the squiggly bracket is just breaking this apart for us a bit. I'm gonna put in some comments here as well. So we want to render our event ID dropdown based on selected player. So to do that, we're going to use observe. Go in here again, we'll do another squiggly squiggle guy. And now we want to have another named area called player data. All right, within player data, what do we want to do? We want to filter, and we're going to go ahead new assessment, because that's what we're reading in. Filtering new assessment, right? What are we filtering that by? Filtering it by full name. Let's make sure it's all capitalized. Why is that green? All right. So we are filtering by full name. We want that equal to the input of, bring in our $, of player name. Remember that we had player name up here from earlier. Selected input player name right here. So that is our select input, which is what we're bringing back here, right? Observe player data, filter new assessment, and full name. The input is the player name. So we're saying you are observing the player name selected. Now what we're gonna do, hit the next line, keep this organized. We'll call this next one event choices. And what I'll do here is gonna be that unique event ID, right? Because that's our second one. So again, we want unique, and we're looking now into player data, right? Because we have defined here the player data is based off of the input of the player name. So unique player data. And what we're gonna be doing, let me get back in here. We're gonna use our money sign again. And then the same thing where we're gonna wanna do the event ID. So event ID. And if you know how to get these guys instead of, little quote guys, I just figured it out by looking at my damn keyboard. It's just clicking that. So if you can see just below your escape key is where you're gonna hit that. So thanks, real-time problem solving done right now. All right, so event ID, let's go ahead and select our next line. So the default, I want a default event, right? I don't want, the last player's data showing up or anything to go wrong. So what I want to do is anytime I make a player selection, I want to automatically view the most recent event that that player has been a part of. So let's just call this default event. And what we're going to do in here, we're going to set it as the max, and then as integer, because they all have numbers, right? A 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're going to go event underscore choices. So, got it. I'm losing my mind. So, as integer, event choices. So what I was doing here when I type in these event choices, from here we've already defined that we want that unique event ID from player data. And so the default event that we're going to display is going to be the max as integer of the event choices. If I select, or if I'm not selecting, I just select the name, this is going to be our default. So let's just type that in so we do not forget. Let's go get the highest event ID. Now, what we want to do is update select input. So update select input. We're going to look into the session. Nice. And event ID. Oops. Event ID. Boom. Comma. Now, choices equals event choices. Nice. Comma. Selected equals default event. So what are we saying here? This is saying I want to update the select input based off of the things I've already defined in here. So the session is going to look for the event ID, which we've already described. The choice is obviously coming from event choices here, right? Unique player data, event ID. So we're looking at that. And then what is going to be selected? We're defining what's going to be selected. And that's going to be our default event. And if we look in here, the default event is going to be the event ID with the highest number. So get the highest event ID. Boom. So this closes it all out for our observe. Do is head to the next one. And now let's filter our data based on player and event selection. So I actually have that all written out. I do not feel like typing that. Sorry, you're gonna have to. All right, so within here, let's make our player data reactive. And then same thing, bring that squiggly back. And what we're gonna do here is snippet. So we're taking this from input, right? Our player name. Oops, player name. And the other input is going to be, let's go here, event ID. All right, so those are our two. This is going to make our reactive. And then what we'll do here, we want to filter it now, right? So reactive expression to filter data based on player and event selection. So we are looking into the two inputs, the player name and the event ID. We are now going to filter that. And from our new assessment data, we're going to look into full name. Remember, it's capitalized. We did that earlier. And input is the player name and that event ID. And then we're going to input money sign event ID. Okay, so let's review. The player data is going to be reactive. So required, input player name and input event ID. And then we're going to filter the new assessment data for the full name that's selected, player name. And then we define that here. So full name equals that player name, and then event ID equals the input of the event ID. Nice. And then we can tell that this closes us out on that reactive piece in there. Go ahead and hit enter. I'm gonna make another line. Now what we're gonna do is output reactive elements based on the selected player and event. So great, we're filtering the data, we're doing those things. What the hell is gonna pop up? So let's go ahead, comment this out. We want to output reactive elements based on selected player and event. So what is our output? The output, I'm gonna go age group. So what are we doing here? Sorry, what are we doing? I'm defining the output. So the output I want it to be is the age group, because I'm gonna be comparing them in percentiles later on. I want to know what age group they're in, so I know who I'm comparing to when I bring those percentiles in. So what we're gonna wanna do is render the text, and boom, bring back our squiggly. That's pretty common in here. So required for this, we're gonna go player data. All right, 3, and paste our age group. Okay, and player data, money sign. I'm gonna go back to age group, calling it back. So what is this saying? We are saying now that the output age group is going to be render the text. What's required is our player data, same thing that we did up here. And we want to paste the age group that is selected. So based on all of our selections, I want to know the age group of the player that is selected, and we are looking into, this is the text that's going to come out, and then we want it to be that player's age group right there. So we'll go ahead and do that multiple times. I don't want to type all of these out, but what we're doing is that is going to be, we'll actually do the next one here. Output movement score. So I'll go ahead and type this one out, then I'll paste the rest. So same thing for our next one. I want to have movement score, lower body power score, upper body power score, rotational power score, then the overall categories. So very, very similar. We're going to go output, and what am I saying? Output $sign, dollar bills, y'all. Movement score. Okay, let's define it. Again, we want to render text. And in render text, we're going to bring back our squiggle. Required. It's going to be player data. Remember what we did with player data? We've defined that already. And boom, we need to have that like that. Player data, and what are we pasting? We are going to paste movement score. All right, movement score. And also, big thing, I'm gonna do this now before later. Something that happened in the data, you're gonna see that some of these have some, it shows 2 decimal points here. I don't think that's necessarily the case. There's actually some with a few more. It's actually not popping through, but anyway, if you have the case where you need to round this data off, right? What we're gonna do in here, we can actually do that within this server code here. So we're actually gonna use the round command, and I'm gonna say player data, boom, and then money sign and movement score. So then remember, that's what it's called within the raw data, and then how many decimal places I want it to be 2. Okay, we're down here. That ends, we can see this ends over here with the render text. Hit enter again, and now I'm gonna paste, I'm gonna do the same thing for each one of these. So we're gonna get lower body power score, upper body power score, and rotational power score along with the overall score. Let's go ahead and paste that in. So I've done the same thing, right? Again, lower body power score, 2 decimals. We're using that round. Again, render text, required player data, all of that jazz. And now, congratulations. If we did everything correctly and we get no errors, this is going to be done. So I am going to go back up to, what is this, the UI. Let's go down to define the server logic. What I'm going to do here, Command Enter. Looks like there were no issues with the code. So just make sure all your commas are in the right spots, you're using everything appropriately. What I'm going to do now is run the application itself. So you can see it works. We have the selected player name here. We've got the drop-down list. We have the select event ID list over here. And we've got our player details area and the assessment scores. So if I'm looking at good old famous guy, Steve Schartz, we can actually pick from in here who we want to see. But we're actually not getting the event ID to populate. So what could be going wrong? Event ID, event. Oh, this is it. See how I've capitalized these? My problem. Honestly, if you're gonna do event ID, just capitalize it all. Just capitalize it all, man. All right. Another area I missed. Age group, done. Simple ones, man. Simple problems. They'll get you every time. Ah. Capital. Yep. Yep. Player name and ID. Let's see if that does it. That's it. That's it. Another one. Super simple. I'm telling you. All right. So now we've got it. We've got our player assessment dashboard. We have our player details here. We have the assessment scores. We've got all of our names. Right? Let's look at Sidney Crosby. We've got all the data populating. So good. Kelly Slater. And we can confirm. If we look in here, John Cena 47. See how I don't have an event ID selected? But we've got, if I click on 2, it actually changed. So this is telling me that this is not giving me the latest. So if we go back in the code, make sure you always exit out of this. Otherwise, you're going to type in your code and try and run the web application again, and it won't work. So, all right, so you may have run into an error specifically that calls back to the event ID. And also, you would not be able to publish this because of a couple things going on with that event ID. And then also, we need to do something special with Google Drive itself. So, first and foremost, your code right here under render event ID dropdown based on selected player, we're under the server logic. So in this actually is not identifying the highest event ID, so we need to change that. Within here, what I'll do is actually rewrite this, and we're going to add a couple of pieces so that we're going to actually transform the data so that when we look in here and we look at column J, we can see, and I'll zoom in a bit, that each of these actually have characters in them and numbers. We want to convert all of these to numbers while still keeping that event name in there. So what we're going to do is actually call on this in here so right at this spot here, what we're going to want to do is actually extract the numeric part of the ID for sorting. So the stuff down here, I'm actually going to fully get rid of. So that way we don't even see it. So for this one, I already have this written out too. I've already confirmed it works. So I'm going to be doing a little copying and pasting. But write this in. So we're going to extract that numeric part. What we're going to do is actually call on event numbers. This is going to be our new one. Again, that's that as integer that we used before. We're going to type in gsub, and then we'll go ahead and give this, so we're doing a pattern, right? You can see that pattern and replacement there. So G sub, and then we're going to do our quotations. We're going to do a couple of backslashes and D. So we're going to replace the digits. Now I'm going to get out of my quotations and I'm going to go in. Replacement is going to be blank. And we want to call on event choices. Okay. So what this is going to do is remove non-digit characters and convert to integers. Okay. Now, let's keep moving on down the line. Our next piece that we're going to do is we want to handle cases where the extraction might result in an NA. That won't be the case for us, but if we had anything missing, we want to omit those. So we're going to take event numbers. Let's go here is .NA. Okay, from event numbers, and we want to just make those 0. Now we want to find the max event number. So the max event is going to be, boom, we're looking into event choices. Give it a bracket, which the max is coming from event numbers, okay? And then we want to update select input from the session and event ID. Make sure that ID, I almost did it again. The ID is, the D is lowercase. So choices, and here we're going to do, equals event choices. Event choices, boom, done, and then selected is going to be the max event. So we essentially just created a new max event going on there, right? Oops, that's the other way. Oh my God, I'm losing it. Okay. Now, that's all we're gonna need to do for that piece. So as we run this, let's just start up here, run the UI code, server logic, and now you can see we auto update to event 2 for all of these players, which is exactly what we want. Before it was not doing that. I actually think it was giving us event 1, so it was just getting confused with the characters that were in there. So any player that you select is now going to take you straight to their second event, which is their most recent, which is exactly what we wanted. All right, now the very last piece that we need to do is actually physically publish this. Because we are reading in from Google Sheets, there is an extra step here. This has been the bane of my existence. So I'm gonna walk you through what I found. This took some Google searching. ChatGPT was zero help. So what we're going to do, and I'm gonna tell you right now, I found this on a Google forum and I was shocked that it actually worked. So you're gonna have to run this in any project that has this, and you're reading in a Google Sheet and you're making a Shiny app, you're gonna have to run it this way. So I have this just called Get G Sheets to work with Shiny. So what we're gonna do is designate the project specific cache. So options, gargle O off cache, and then we're gonna create, this is essentially creating a file called secrets, which is going to save that secret code and the authentication you have for your Google account. Pretty much what's happening now is that all this Google Sheet stuff is only saving to your local machine, which is going to break it when you go to publish it up here. So what we need to do before you type this out, let's go ahead and do library Google Drive. We're gonna load that in, okay? Now we've got that in. What we're gonna do is run this option. So we're gonna create that file. You can see that that worked. Now we're gonna check the value of the option. I'm not gonna run it because that's gonna give my actual number in there, and I don't feel like editing this video and that part out. Now we're going to trigger the auth on purpose. We're going to store a token in the specified cache. So this is actually going to store it for us, which is great. This is going to bring up the request access again. So what I want to do is actually, you can see that I already have loaded in there. We already loaded this in previously. So I'm actually going to select 2 down here. Go ahead and do that. And that looks good. So that's not actually going to open my browser for the new authentication process. So this just triggers that authentication process. So we're good there. Now, if I actually wanted to see this, let's go ahead and run it. But that's down there. Now, because we've run that, and remember we added Google Drive up here, let's save this. And now let's launch and publish our very first Shiny app. So I'm going to go R walkthrough here. Again, this has to be one word here, and we are going to publish to the account. So I am going into, this is what we had before. You can see my secrets are there. What's key here is that before you couldn't see these secrets. You should only have 1 secret in here. I have 2 accounts linked to this, so you're seeing 2 different secret codes. But one will be displayed here, and that's going to be the key to get this to work. If you don't see these files, the publishing of the app is not going to actually work. So I'm just going to go publish this. Make sure you have launch browser here. We're going to deploy this. I've tried this a bunch of times, so I already have this R walkthrough made in here. I'm going to replace it, which is just saying, hey, overwrite my file pretty much, or overwrite my Shiny app. So I'm going to pause this while we let it run. It takes a couple of minutes, and we'll get to it. All right, and just like that, it is deployed and working. We have connected our Google Drive to Shiny. We're storing those secret tokens, so that way we can make all of this work. So you can see here, it's working as expected. I have the player selected here, and we have that latest event ID coming through. So if I click Sammy Sosa, same thing. We're getting that same exact functionality that we were looking for before. I'll go ahead and just make this a bit bigger so it's easier to see, but right, we're getting this all working now. So if you followed along, congrats, you just launched your first Shiny app. You could actually share this URL with anyone, and they can go in and use this just as you are. So in the next episode, we're gonna be building this out even more, okay? We're gonna be hopefully creating some more visuals. I'd like to create some gauge scores potentially, and then start to put in some longitudinal graphs so we can look at things as a snapshot and look at them longitudinally. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell to stay updated on the next video, and I'll see you in the next one.